Hey, I'm Charlie. Welcome to Millstone Research. If you're watching this video, then my guess is that you are or were one of Jehovah's Witnesses, and that recently something happened that didn't feel right or didn't make sense. The reason for that is that it isn't right, and it doesn't make sense. It probably isn't the first time this has happened to you, but it might be the first time that you've decided not to ignore it. Jehovah's Witnesses are trained, often from birth, to substitute the Watchtower's unfounded claims for one's own reasoning and experiences. And when we begin to make greater contact with reality, that worldview quickly begins to crumble. This can be a very frightening and bewildering event, because although life seems in most ways identical to how it was before, it may also feel more uncertain and hostile. After all, if one particular belief that you'd held for years or decades is false, then what else might you be wrong about, and how good is your ability to judge that? Who are you if not one of Jehovah's Witnesses? If the truth isn't true, what is? The fact that you're beginning to ask those questions is a good thing, and those questions are a great place to begin. Regardless of where you go from here, I want you to know that your life is your life. If you choose to follow your questions wherever they may lead, that is your choice. And if you choose to ignore them and return to the dank submission of life under the Watchtower's rule, that is your choice as well. I'm here because I was raised as one of Jehovah's Witnesses from birth by two young parents and much of my extended family, all of whom crossed paths with the Watchtower during those final years leading up to 1975. I woke up when I was 15 years old after taking a copy of the book Life, How Did It Get Here by Evolution or Creation to my public library, where I looked up all the quotes and references. From that day forward, I knew that the Watchtower was lying to everyone, but knowing that did not prevent me from meeting and marrying a witness when I was 19 and staying in until we left together in 2006. We parted ways a year later and remain close friends to this day. After leaving the Watchtower's control, I just kind of lived my life. And although much of it has been beautiful and extraordinary, a fair amount of restlessness, anxiety, substance abuse, and relationship chaos also followed me wherever I went. Then, about 3 years ago, I found myself in a very intense, emotionally unboundaried, high-conflict relationship. My partner had disclosed early on that she was a survivor of severe childhood trauma and that she suffered from complex post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD. Wanting to be a supportive boyfriend and better understand her condition, I bought and read books like The Body Keeps the Score by Bessel and Kolk and Complex PTSD From Surviving to Thriving by Pete Walker. And when I did that, I began to discover that many of the abusive family dynamics that my partner had endured featured just as prominently in my own family and in me. See, when I escaped the Watchtower's rule at age 25, I thought I was fine. I thought, well, some parts of my past could have been better. I'm fine. That's over now. I'm fine. It didn't affect me. I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm fine. But I wasn't fine. I was extremely numb and in severe denial. That relationship ultimately ended, but it was a huge gift because by the time it was over, I knew that I was on the trail of something important. For the first time in my life, all the interconnected patterns of my behavior as an adult, my family history, and the religion of my birth began to become visible. From there, I did a very deep dive into the topics of child development, intergenerational trauma, narcissistic abuse, codependence, addiction, history, sociology, and trauma recovery. I also re-engaged with the teachings and behavior of the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society to a greater degree than I ever had before, even when I was still an active witness. That said, I want to be clear from the outset that I am not an authority on any of those subjects, and I have no relevant qualifications of any kind. All that I will be doing in these videos is pointing out some of the patterns that I've noticed that will hopefully motivate you to do your own research and to seek professional resources if you feel that you need them. As I've already said, your life is your life, and whatever you choose to do next is completely up to you. I was never expecting to end up on YouTube, by the way. But then, last August, I found myself watching Paul Gillies, Watchtower PR spokesman and lackey, harumph and lie his way through the hearings held by the International Inquiry into Child Sexual Abuse. I watched Mr. Gillies do his best to act bored and detached, like he couldn't possibly imagine why the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society would be of any interest to an international inquiry into child sexual abuse, despite the Watchtower's well-documented history of protecting pedophiles within their congregations and leadership, mistreating victims who report their abuse, and paying many millions of donated funds to those victims in order to keep their stories out of the headlines. Seeing that really bothered me. And a couple of days later, I was sitting on my bed thinking about what I had seen in the hearings and what I'd been learning about trauma when a question appeared in my mind. The question was, what would have helped me most to hear when I was 15 years old, waking up, alone and really afraid? And immediately I knew exactly what I would say, which is this: you're not crazy. You're not alone. There are ways out, and it's going to be okay. I truly believe that. I believe it even more now, a year later, than I did back then. You're not crazy, but you are in a crazy situation. The best way I've come up with to describe it is that if you are or ever were one of Jehovah's Witnesses, then you are or were in a narcissistically abusive relationship with a publishing company who considers itself to be God's sovereign nation on earth, and your family and friends probably are too. We'll get to the second part of that claim in a later video, but I can prove the first part right now. Just ask yourself, is it safe for you to be honest about what you actually think, feel, want, or need with your Jehovah's Witness family, friends, or congregation? Or would you be punished, invalidated, and shunned for doing so? Would you also be punished, invalidated, and shunned for ever daring to speak honestly and publicly about the abuse that you've endured as a result of being associated with the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society? Because if the answer to those questions is yes, then you are in an abusive relationship with a publishing company, as well as with your Jehovah's Witness family, friends, and congregation. So many Jehovah's Witnesses are now in this situation that there's a term for it, PMO, physically in, mentally out. And if a PMO ever decides to speak honestly and publicly about what they believe, they are sure to be labeled an apostate. I am not an apostate. I am a child abuse survivor. And now that governing body member David Splane has made it clear that the Watchtower sees no distinction between the two groups, I'm inclined to agree with him. So from now on, whenever you hear the word apostate, just remember that that's the Watchtower's special word for the people they've harmed, who refuse to remain silent about it, and who don't want what happened to them to continue happening to other innocent children. By innocent children, I don't mean only the countless survivors of child sex abuse. I mean anyone and everyone raised as one of Jehovah's Witnesses, because raising a child as one of Jehovah's Witnesses is, in itself, child abuse. So that's why I'm here, to explore these topics and encourage others to do the same. In this series of videos, I'll be answering 4 questions that might be of interest. They are, what the hell happened to me? What the hell happened to my family? What the hell happened to my friends? And what the hell happened to their families? I mean, like, what the f— Actually, no. Those aren't the 4 questions. I'll also be answering those questions, but the real questions are, how did we all end up in this mess, as families and individuals? What is the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society really? How do we all get out of this mess, as families and individuals? And last but not least, how will the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society end? I'm going to answer those questions without playing any JW broadcasting clips or even referencing much Watchtower doctrine. I can do that because the beliefs don't actually matter. The emotions do. I'm going to end this video by reading a quote by diarist, essayist, and novelist Anais Nin, because I suspect that it fairly describes what many of you are going through. You live like this, sheltered, in a delicate world, and you believe that you are living. Then you read a book, or you take a trip, and you discover that you are not living, that you are hibernating. The symptoms of hibernating are easily detectable. First, restlessness. The second symptom, when hibernating becomes dangerous and might degenerate into death, absence of pleasure. That is all. It appears like an innocuous illness. Monotony, boredom, death. Millions live like this, or die like this, without knowing it. They work in offices. They drive a car. They picnic with their families. They raise children. And then some shock treatment takes place. A person, a book, a song, and it awakens them and saves them from death. Some never awaken. Some never awaken, but you did. Thanks for watching, and remember, your life is your life. You're not crazy. You're not alone. There are ways out, and it's going to be okay.